What if you woke up tomorrow, in the dead of a Persian winter, and your bed was a patch of snow-covered earth, no heater, no tent, just frozen breath, distant war cries, and the haunting silence between battles? You're not royalty. You're not some mythic hero. You're a soldier, and tonight, you're sleeping with one eye open and your hand on your blade. This is not the history you were taught. This is the Persian Empire at war, not in gold-drenched palaces, but out in the wastelands, where frost clings to armor and survival is earned one brutal night at a time. Forget what you saw in glossy museum displays. This was not a time of comfort. This was cold, raw, unforgiving. So, before we sink into the frostbitten soil of history, hit that like button and subscribe if you're ready to feel the past in your bones. And hey, drop a comment with where you're watching from and what the weather's like. Let's see how many modern comforts you've got compared to these warriors. Now, dim the lights, clear your mind, and try not to shiver, because you've just landed on a battlefield beneath the Persian moon. And out here, the snow doesn't care if you're tired, the enemy doesn't care if you're cold, and if you can't find a way to sleep with death breathing down your neck, you won't live to see the sunrise. You are safe now. Let the world slow to a hush. Let your thoughts soften like mist drifting over the edge of sleep. Close your eyes if they are not already heavy. Breathe gently, slowly. The quiet of distant centuries is calling to you, not in a shout, but in a murmur, like the wind through pines or the crackle of a dying hearth fire. It is time to travel back, not through chaos or glory, but through the fragile quiet between battles, the moments when soldiers slept, when swords lay on frozen soil, and breath curled skyward like incense in the dark. This is a story not of war, but of sleep, of cold, and of endurance. A story of human bodies seeking warmth in a world that offered little comfort. Tonight, we drift through the shadowed edges of the Achaemenid Empire. The first Persian Empire, vast and ancient, stretching across mountains and deserts, rivers and ruins. Its armies were many, its power immense. But power does not protect against the cold. Even emperors, even warriors felt the frostbite. They too huddled under the stars. They too longed for softness. Let yourself be pulled, slowly, deeply, into their world. Feel it like a dream you have entered mid-sentence, unsure if it has already begun. You do not need to follow every date or name. There will be no quiz, only the slow unfolding of time, like parchment unrolling by candlelight. In this journey, you will not march. You will not fight. You will sleep beside the soldiers. You will wrap yourself in wool and silence. You will feel the cold breath of history on your cheeks. And as you do, your thoughts may blur, your mind may quiet. You may forget where you are. That is not only acceptable, that is the point. You may fall asleep while listening, and that is perfectly fine. In fact, it is welcome. This is not a tale, to be conquered or completed. It is a gentle fog to wander through until your waking mind grows still. And now, as the world around you fades, imagine this. You are not in your bed. You are beneath an ancient sky. The stars above you have not yet been named by science. They are watched only by the living and the gods. The ground beneath you is not carpeted, it is earth. Cold, hard, ancient earth, and it holds the footsteps of armies, pressed there by frost, faded by wind. You lie among them now. You, wrapped in rough fabric, heart beating beneath layers of history. You are not a hero here. You are not a name carved into marble. You are simply one body, trying to sleep, trying to endure, and that is more than enough. Try surviving a full day here, not in war, but in waiting, not in shouting, but in breathing. Try to feel the air as they did. sharp and dry and thin. Try to let your thoughts slow to their rhythm. No clocks, no screens, only stars and the strange hush of ancient time. In this world, you do not speak. You listen. You feel. You become the silence between raindrops. The stillness before a torch is lit. You are a presence, a breath, a watcher. So we begin. Slowly, softly, like snow melting into soil. We will travel back, not in a rush, but in a drift. Time is a stream here, not a road. Let it carry you. Let it carry you back to the night before the march, to the quiet before the cold, to the sleep before the story. It begins not with a sound, but with the absence of one. Not with motion, but with stillness. You are no longer where you were. The air tells you this first. It touches your skin differently now. It does not hum with electricity. It does not smell of synthetic warmth or fabric softener. It is older, quieter, cooler, as though drawn straight from the mouth of a cave untouched by time. You are waking, slowly, on unfamiliar ground. The surface beneath you is not your mattress. It is uneven, lumpy. It rustles when you shift. Straw. Crude and dry, scattered thick beneath you like brittle hair. Your body sinks into it uneasily, cradled and poked at once. The sky is still dark above, not the flat navy blue of a modern night, but a deep, endless black, a darkness that breathes, a darkness punctured by stars too bright, too sharp, stars without pollution. They hang in the heavens like silver nails, fixed there by ancient hands. They watch you silently. They do not blink. One flickers red near the horizon. You do not know its name, but it feels ancient, like a god's eye watching the cold below. You are covered in a woolen cloak, thick, itchy, heavy. It smells of lanolin and old smoke. It is not clean. Nothing here is clean in the way you once knew. Your tunic beneath is simple linen, worn thin. It clings faintly to your skin where you have sweat, though now that sweat is dry and chill. Your feet are wrapped in cloth and leather, not boots exactly, but stiff, protective shapes. You wiggle your toes. They are stiff, not numb, but close. A small fire must have once burned nearby, but it is now only ash, and the smoke that clings to your clothing is from another hour, a warmer hour that no longer exists. Around you lie other bodies, not dead, but sleeping, or trying to. Soldiers, just like you. Their forms are bundled beneath furs, under cloaks, some huddled 2 or 3 together like stones in a stream bed. You hear a murmur here and there, a cough, a shifting limb, a soft snore. No one speaks. The quiet is too full. You feel as though speech would wake the sky itself. There is a weight to this hour, the deep hour before dawn, when frost hangs in the air like a veil and every breath feels like smoke without fire. Your lungs ache faintly with each inhale, not from pain, but from purity. This air is sharp, crisp, clean in a way that almost hurts. You can taste the snow nearby, though the ground here is more ice than snow, hard-packed, frozen soil with shards of old frost glinting in its cracks. Beneath the straw, your back feels the cold rising like a tide. It does not matter how many layers you wear. Cold always finds its way through. You sit up slowly. Your joints protest, not from age, but from the stiffness of cold muscles not meant to lie so long on such ground. You flex your fingers and they resist you, as though they too have fallen, into a slower time. You rub them together and they begin to feel again. The sound they make is soft, like dry leaves against one another. It is strange how much sound matters here, how quiet everything is, how you become aware of your own movements. Even the creak of your leather belt feels loud in this silence. You look around, eyes adjusting to the dark. There is no torchlight. No campfires remain. only the faintest red glow from a buried ember under a pile of ash several paces away. The sky is beginning to pale, but only just. A bluish hue somewhere far behind the black is pushing forward, hesitant, like a curtain lifting one thread at a time. Somewhere in the distance, a horse snorts. The sound is soft, muffled by the breath of the cold. You imagine its flanks steaming, its hooves shifting against the frost-bitten earth. Beside it, another soft sound, metal against leather, a harness being adjusted perhaps, or a sword moved gently by a sleeping owner. You cannot yet see the outline of tents or pavilions, but you sense their presence, a world of fabric and ropes, of spears standing like trees in the night. This is not a battle camp yet, not in this moment. This is the space before it, a suspended world, between yesterday's march and today's command. You are not afraid, not yet. The cold keeps fear away. All you can feel is your own breath and the world's quiet indifference. To it, somewhere nearby, bread has been left near the embers. Not much, but enough. Hard crusts from yesterday, meant to soften in the warmth that never fully came. You chew slowly. It cracks, flakes. It has no taste, only texture. But it gives you something to do with your mouth, with your jaw. Something to remind you that you are awake, that you are real. A breeze moves through the camp. Not strong, but sharp, like a knife drawn softly across skin. You pull your cloak tighter. The wool scratches your neck, but you are grateful for it. The soldiers around you do not stir much. Most know the rhythm of these mornings. You do not rise quickly. You do not speak loudly. You wait. You feel the land. You let the day come to you. And it is coming. Slowly, gently. The first light is not yellow or gold. It is gray. Cold gray. A smear of diluted silver across the horizon. It touches the tops of the distant hills, then bleeds down like cold ink through paper. Shadows form more clearly now, not bright, but defined. You see a hand curled beside another soldier's face. You see a helmet resting atop a log. You see frost along the edge of a tent flap, catching light like crystal. You are awake now, fully, but it feels like dreaming. The quiet, the cold, the waiting. This is the world before words, before commands, before armor clinks and voices rise. This is the breath before the day begins. And it has been held for centuries. Your cloak is not made for style. It is made for survival. Thick wool, spun from the fleece of mountain sheep, dyed in the muted browns and ochres of the land. There is no bright color here, no polished buttons, or tailored cuts. Only what the earth can give, and what it can give is warmth in coarse, stubborn layers. Your tunic is longer than what you knew in your time. It reaches nearly to your knees, woven from flax fibers softened by wear. It once had color, perhaps the soft green of wild herbs or the dusty red of crushed ochre stones, but time and washing have faded it into neutrality. A quiet hue, like river silt or smoke. The sleeves are wide, loose enough to push up, but long enough to hide your hands when the air bites. Around your waist, a belt of woven leather binds it close, not ornate, just functional. It carries a knife tucked into it. Not a weapon, exactly, but a tool. You feel its weight even now, resting cold against your side. You touch it often without thinking, the way a person might brush their sleeve or adjust a ring, not because it needs adjusting, but because the body seeks reassurance. Underneath, there are trousers. Not the kind with seams and zippers, but simple wraps of cloth bound with cords at the calves. They chafe at times. They are not made for comfort, but they hold the warmth in, and that is enough. On your feet, leather shoes, more like sheaths than boots. Stiff, weathered, with thick wool stuffed inside for insulation. When you walk, you do not tread lightly. The ground feels everything. Your head is bare for now, but often it is covered. A woolen hood or a wrapped cloth, depending on rank and origin. Soldiers from warmer regions sometimes go bareheaded, though they suffer for it in this climate. The cold cares little for where you were born. Your hands, if uncovered, are the first to ache. The nails are rimmed in dirt. The skin, rough from the constant grip of tools, weapons, reins. Gloves exist, but few wear them. Instead, fingers are tucked into cloaks, curled under arms, hidden like secrets. There is little perfume in this world. Instead, people smell of wood smoke, animal fat, unwashed fabric, and earth. Scent is not something to hide here. It is a part of being known. You recognize people before they speak. Their presence is in the air. No mirror shows you your reflection. You know your appearance by the reactions of others, by the way your tunic hangs, by the stains you recognize from yesterday's march. Vanity, if it exists, is expressed in the tightening of a belt, the straightening of a hem, or the polishing of a buckle. Not for beauty, but for dignity. And so, you wear your place in the world, not like armor, not like decoration, but like skin, rough, real, necessary. You move carefully in this world, not just to avoid the cold stones underfoot or the eyes of a superior, but because movement here is meaning. Every gesture is a thread in the fabric of ancient etiquette. Nothing is accidental. Nothing is empty. When you greet someone, you do not reach for a handshake. Instead, your right hand comes to your chest, fingers lightly pressed, and your eyes lower for just a moment. It is not submission. It is acknowledgement. A quiet signal that says, I see you. I see your place, and I accept mine. If the one you greet is of higher rank, you bow slightly, not deeply, just enough to show you remember who commands whom. The more formal the moment, the more pronounced the gesture. A full bow, held a moment. Longer may be offered to a noble, a priest, or a visiting emissary. And it must be timed, not too eager, not too delayed. To bow too quickly is to seem rehearsed. To bow too late is to invite suspicion. You do not interrupt. Speech is slow and measured. Voices are kept low, not from fear, but from habit. The camp is full of ears. Soldiers, servants, animals, and worse, those who carry words where they should not go. When you do speak, you speak plainly, unless you are in court or before a scribe, where language must bloom into ceremony. But among your fellow men there is no poetry. There is only precision. What time is the march? Who has water? How many steps until the river bend? You do not point. Instead, you gesture with the whole hand, palm open, fingers relaxed. Pointing is for accusation or insult. If you must indicate something, let your wrist guide the eye, not your finger. If you are beckoned by a superior, you approach quickly but with your head lowered just enough to show awareness, never groveling. You speak only when spoken to. You keep your eyes from wandering. Too much eye contact is considered aggressive. Too little, deceitful. It is a narrow path, like walking between two blades. Among equals, you are freer. A clap on the shoulder is not uncommon. A shared drink loosens tongues. Laughter is rare but real when it comes. And when someone falls asleep beside you in the cold, you do not comment. You simply make room. Privacy is a concept that breathes differently here. Modesty is not in nudity, which is functional and often unavoidable. Modesty lives in silence, in not asking about another man's sorrow, in pretending not to hear a cry that breaks from a tent before dawn. You survive here not by strength alone, but by understanding the rhythm of others, the unspoken rules, the moments when stillness is wiser than speech. In this world, manners are not manners. They are survival. A single wrong glance can end a night of peace. A single misstep can shift a camp's wind against you, so you learn to watch. You learn to wait, and you move through the hours like a whisper passing through cloth, barely noticed but never forgotten. In this world, your place is often shaped before you speak your first word. Gender is not a question, but a foundation. Silent, unquestioned, woven into the days like thread into wool. If you are born a man, the road before you is lined with tasks carved in stone. You are expected to carry, to hunt, to bleed. Your muscles are measured before your voice. You do not cry unless in battle, and even then the tears are swallowed before they leave the eye. You are given a blade before you are given a book, and if you are lucky, you are taught to use both. If you are born a woman, your world is quieter, but no less defined. You are the keeper of warmth, the bearer of meals, the watcher of children and coals. You do not march to war, but your hands know labor. They know the weight of water jugs, the heat of hearthstones, the soft wailing of infants in the dark. You rise before the light and work beyond the dusk. Your strength is not sung about, but it is known in every stitch, every spoonful, every scar on your fingers from the slip of a dull knife. There are exceptions. A woman of noble blood may carry authority, may manage estates in the absence of a husband, may command servants and shape alliances. But even she is a shadow of her male counterparts, her power often indirect, dependent on whispers and woven intentions. She must be clever without seeming so. She must speak without challenging. She must hold her ground without standing tall. For soldiers, women are often unseen, though they are present. They tend the fires at camp's edge. They mend the garments, torn by bramble and blade. Some are wives, trailing their husbands with patience and silence. Some are healers, moving from tent to tent with poultices and prayer. Some are there by less willing means, their presence tolerated but never spoken of in the open. The line between what one can do and what one is allowed to do is clear. Men may weep in secret, women may fight with hidden fire, but these are not the roles you speak of at dawn. These are the truths that live between the rituals. And so, you move through your day not as a free figure, but as a piece of a larger design. A role shaped by centuries, honored by obedience, and softened only in the privacy of the self. The world you walk through does not belong to you, not in the way you might once have imagined ownership. Here, land is not held in one's name, but in one's bloodline. Authority is not earned in moments, but inherited across generations. There is an order to all things, and that order is seldom questioned aloud. The Persian Empire, mighty, endless, its borders lost in sand and stone, is a world of layers. At the top, the king, not just a ruler, but a symbol, a divine embodiment of law and fate. To speak his name is an act of reverence. To see his face a privilege granted only to the few. He does not walk among soldiers. He rides through ceremony. His words become edicts. His silence becomes law. Below him, the satraps, governors of vast regions, stewards of the empire's weight. They hold palaces carved into mountain walls, courts draped in gold-threaded linen. They rule not with brute force, but with the quiet power of taxes and judgment. A satrap may never raise his voice, yet with a glance he can cause entire villages to vanish into history. Then come the nobles and commanders, dressed in heavier fabrics, mounted on taller horses. They wear their rank not only on their tunics but in the way others step aside. They do not eat the same barley. Their water is colder. Their tents are wider, scented faintly with imported oils. When they speak, others lower their gaze. When they walk, the air parts a little. You, most likely, are not one of them. You walk among the ranks of the common soldier, the field worker, the craftsman. Your hands carry dirt. Your meals are earned by labor. You sleep where there is space, not where there is comfort. But even here, there is structure. Older men eat first. Men who have marched the longest are given more straw. The wounded are treated by order of status, not severity. And though you are not without value, you are not irreplaceable. Punishment is not chaotic. It is precise, swift, often unseen. A man may speak too freely by a fire and not be there the next morning. A soldier who steals rations may be stripped and whipped before the sun reaches its peak. A deserter, if caught, is rarely granted a second chance. His name is erased before his body is even cold. There are no courts for the common man. There is the word of your superior and the weight of his hand. There are no pleas, only obedience or consequence. And yet, most follow the rules not from fear, but from rhythm. The structure gives meaning. It creates a pattern in the chaos. You wake, you eat, you march, you kneel when required. You survive. Step out of line, and you might disappear for days. Ask the wrong question, and no one may answer you again. The cold is not the only thing that silences here. The law does too. It moves quietly beneath the surface, like a slow river under winter ice. And so you learn to live within your place. You learn its boundaries like the edges of your own body. You do not resist them. You wrap them around you. You carry them even as you sleep. The first thing you feel is not sound. It is cold. Not sudden, not sharp, but gradual, as though it has crept into your very bones during the night, winding its way around your spine and ribs like a silent serpent. It seeps into the creases of your clothing, into the hollow of your throat, into the soles of your feet. There is no sun yet, no light, only a change in air, the stillness deepening, as if the world is holding its breath for what comes next. You do not open your eyes immediately. You lie still, listening, feeling. The ground beneath your body is stiff with frost. The straw mattress you share with another soldier has grown damp during the night, and where it touches your back, the cold has pooled like water in a basin. Your cloak is drawn tightly around you, but the warmth it once offered has retreated, leaving only a faint echo of heat around your chest and knees. Beside you, another breath rises and falls. Slow, rhythmic. He is still asleep, or pretending to be. There is no rush to rise, no bell or horn, only the faint signal of distant movement, the earliest of stirrings as though the earth itself has begun to shift beneath a thin layer of frost. Somewhere, a man clears his throat. Somewhere another groans softly as he turns, his limbs stiff from yesterday's march. Your eyes open slowly. The light is gray, not yet day, but no longer night. You see your breath bloom in the air above your lips, drifting upward like the final puff of a candle before it dies. The tent around you is simple. 4 wooden stakes, a patchwork of wool and hide. It does not keep the cold out, only softens it. Along one side, a pile of cloaks and sandals. Along another, a small bowl of melted snow, now crusted with a thin layer of ice. You sit up, slowly, carefully. Every joint resists. You roll your shoulders, feeling the grain of old bruises and the stiffness of cold muscles. Your hands rub your face, not to cleanse it, but to confirm it still moves. Your fingers are rough, cracked, and numb at the tips. You press them together, slowly coaxing life back into them. The first task of the morning is not noble. It is not ceremonial. It is practical. You step outside. The ground is hard, brittle underfoot. Your breath comes out in white clouds. You walk a short distance behind the tent to relieve yourself. There are no toilets, no privacy, only a few stones, a faint ditch, a line of trees if the camp is near any. You go quietly. Everyone does. Eyes do not meet in this hour. There is no shame, only necessity. You return to the tent, A soldier nearby has stirred the embers from last night's fire. He blows on them gently, his face close to the ash. A few sparks flicker, hesitant. A sliver of kindling catches, then sighs into flame. There is no celebration, just a small nod. The day has begun. A bowl is passed to you. Barley, mash, still warm. It has no flavor, but it fills the stomach. You eat it slowly, chewing with the rhythm of thought, not hunger. Your fingers, though cold, grip the bowl firmly. It is your first warmth of the day. A soldier's breakfast is not a meal. It is a preparation. You chew because you must march. You chew because the body must wake, even if the mind still floats, somewhere between dream and duty. As you eat, you watch the camp stir. Men rise one by one. Some stretch their arms upward, slowly like trees reaching for the sky. Others sit with their heads in their hands. One hums softly, a low, tuneless murmur, perhaps a lullaby remembered, or perhaps a warding spell against the cold. No one speaks loudly. Voices remain low, graveled by sleep. Some tend to their garments, shaking out cloaks, tightening belts, inspecting boots. Others sharpen blades, not urgently, but as a ritual. The sound of stone against metal carries softly in the early air. It is a sound not of war, but of readiness. The same way a man might tend to his sandals before a journey, or a priest might trim a wick before lighting a lamp. Washing is minimal. There is no basin large enough, no soap fragrant enough to remove the traces of days layered on skin. You pour a handful of icy water from a skin into your palms. Press it to your face. It shocks you awake. It reminds you where you are. It leaves a trail down your neck that bites at the skin until it dries. Some men pray. Not all, but a few find. A stone, kneel, and murmur under breath. You do not interrupt them. Faith is personal, quiet. It is not performed here, it is practiced. Their hands form shapes you recognize, gestures traced in air, repeated from childhood. Protection, remembrance, hope. You do not need to understand the words to understand their weight. Soon the camp will be fully awake. Commands will come. Tents will be struck, packs loaded, horses bridled. But for now, this is the space before action, the breath before the first step, the hush between rest and movement. You wrap your cloak tighter. The sky is beginning to pale. The gray softens to silver. Somewhere beyond the hills, the sun waits. You do not rush it. Here, the day begins slowly, softly, like the memory of a warmer time, and so do you. The cold is a persistent companion, whispering around your bones as you rise to meet the day, but the promise of warmth, however slight, comes with the preparation of food. It is not a moment of joy or celebration, but a careful, necessary dance that fills empty stomachs and fuels weary bodies. You find yourself drawn to the fire once more, where embers still glow faintly, holding the memory of the night's heat. The smoke curls upward in thin, lazy spirals, the scent of burnt wood mingling with the crispness of the morning air. The bread is hard. Coarse barley loaves, baked days ago and carried long distances. The crust cracks beneath your fingers, dry and brittle as old parchment, the crumb dense and flavorless. Yet it is comforting in its simplicity. You break off a piece and chew slowly, letting the dryness soak up the moisture in your mouth. There is no butter, no honey to soften it, only the plain truth of grain and earth. Around you, others share what little they have. Some have small pots of stewed lentils, simmered over low flame with wild herbs, thyme, cumin, or whatever the land offers. The smell is faint but warming, a promise that something living still breathes in this frozen landscape. You watch the slow stirring of pots, the careful distribution of scant rations. Every crumb, every drop is precious. Water is precious too, carried in skins that have long lost their scent of leather, now imbued with the taste of the springs and rivers they have passed. You drink slowly, savoring the cold bite as it washes. Away the grit from your throat, the remnants of dust and cold air. The preparation of food is communal yet quiet. Men move like shadows in the half-light, passing bowls and spoons without a word. There is an unspoken understanding that noise wastes warmth, wastes time. Flames are coaxed rather than shouted for. A single crackle is enough to remind you of life's fragile persistence. Cooking is a skill born from hardship. You have learned how to tend the fire with patience, how to coax the best from scant ingredients. A handful of grain soaked overnight becomes porridge, thick and gritty. A piece of dried meat, rehydrated by boiling water, offers texture and protein. Salt, rare and precious, is used sparingly, like a secret seasoning that can transform the simplest meal into something bearable. Eating is a slow ritual, marked by care rather than haste. You sit with your legs crossed, back straight against the chill wind, your fingers sticky from the food. You chew each bite deliberately, feeling the grain grind between your teeth, tasting the faint bitterness of burnt herbs and the earthiness of root vegetables. The warmth spreads slowly from your stomach outward, a small fire within that pushes back against the cold that waits outside the circle of the campfire's light. Meals are not moments of excess, but of necessity. There is no feasting here, no abundance. The food is functional, meant to sustain, not to delight. Yet even in its plainness there is comfort. Shared hunger creates bonds. The act of breaking bread, even hard, dry bread, connects you to those around you, to the soldiers who march beside you, to the centuries that have carried this ritual before you. You listen to the soft scrape of spoons against bowls, the low murmur of voices softened by fatigue and cold. Sometimes a quiet joke is shared, a brief flicker of warmth in the long, dark hours. Laughter is rare but treasured, a candle flickering bravely against the vast night. After eating, some return to the fire to warm their hands, fingers splayed, over the dying embers, watching as the orange glow pulses like a heartbeat. Others simply sit, wrapping their cloaks tighter, eyes heavy but minds alert to the subtle shifts in the camp's rhythm. The world beyond your small circle remains cold and indifferent, but here, in these shared moments of sustenance, there is a fragile thread of humanity, soft and fleeting, yet strong enough to carry you through another day on frozen battlefields. The morning's pale light spreads thin across the frost-hardened earth, brushing over tents and scattered belongings like a whisper. There is no moment to linger. Work begins not with urgency, but with a gentle acceptance, a rhythm as old as the empire itself. The cold still lingers, a constant companion pressing into skin and bone, but the day calls, and the soldiers rise to meet it. You find yourself moving slowly, muscles stiff from the frozen night. Each step is deliberate, careful against the uneven ground which crunches faintly underfoot. The air is crisp, filled with the mingled scents of wet wool, wood smoke, and the faint, ever-present earthiness of the land itself. Your breath comes in visible puffs, a soft cloud that drifts upward and fades into the chill morning air. Your hands, rough, cracked from labor and cold, reach for the tools that will shape your day. There is no grand task awaiting, no heroic battle cry to rouse you, only the persistent duties that stitch together the fabric of survival. You tend to your armor and weapons first, for these are extensions of your very being. The leather straps are stiff and creak softly as you adjust them, the metal dull but steady, cold enough to bite if left bare. You rub the blades slowly, feeling the fine grit of sharpening stones under your fingertips. Each pass a small act of care, a quiet prayer for the day ahead. Nearby, others engage in similar rituals. Some collect firewood, their axes biting into frost-laden branches with a dull thud that punctuates the morning silence. The scent of fresh-cut pine fills the air, sharp and clean. Wood is precious here. It is the difference between warmth and numbness, between life and a slow retreat into cold sleep. You watch as they bundle the sticks carefully, tying them with leather cords, the rhythmic motion as soothing as the crackle of flames. Other soldiers turn their attention to the tents, their fingers nimble despite the chill. They mend torn fabric, sewing rough stitches that will hold through wind and storm. The coarse threads pull at their skin, but there is a quiet satisfaction in this work, a knowledge that every patch, every knot, is a small victory against the elements. The fabric flaps softly in the breeze, whispering secrets of countless nights spent beneath the sky. The horses, too, demand care. Their breath steams in the cold air, nostrils flaring as they stamp impatiently. You assist in brushing them down, the coarse hair stiff with frost and dust. Your hands move with practiced gentleness, removing tangled straw and dirt. Saddles and harnesses are checked and tightened, the leather cold and unforgiving. The animals are both burden and blessing. Without them, the empire's vastness would swallow men whole. Water must be carried from the nearest stream or well, a task that feels heavier than it should under the weight of cold and fatigue. The skins used to transport it are old and cracked, the leather stiff, leaking faintly with every step. You balance the load carefully, muscles straining, back aching, aware that this small contribution keeps the camp alive. There are no complaints. There is no impatience. Each chore is met with quiet endurance. The conversations that weave through the morning are low and sparse, soft words exchanged over tasks, stories told in whispers, laughter kept to a minimum. The cold seems to demand respect, a solemnity that tempers voices and slows movements. As the hours pass, you feel the slow thaw of your body, the warmth returning in flashes carried on the backs of labor. Your limbs loosen. Your fingers grow less numb. The fire's glow touches your cheeks, and the world feels less harsh, if only for a moment. Yet even as you work, the vastness of the frozen landscape looms beyond the camp, a silent reminder of your smallness. You are but a single thread in the empire's grand tapestry, woven with many others like you, each one enduring, each one moving forward, step by slow step, through the cold and quiet. In the long stretch between labor and rest, when the sun dips low and the cold begins to press once more against bones weary from the day, there is a quiet time reserved for something softer, moments where the sharp edges of survival blur into the gentle curves of human connection. Leisure in this world is a fragile thing, like a thin flame flickering against the wind, but it is cherished all the same. You find yourself seated near the dying embers of a fire, its orange glow casting long shadows that dance slowly across the rough canvas of tents. Around you, others gather, bodies leaning inwards for warmth, faces illuminated by the soft flicker of flames. Their voices are low, muffled against the cold, as if louder sounds might shatter this fragile peace. Here, laughter is a whisper, a secret passed like a cherished coin. Games are simple but absorbing. Stones are gathered and placed with care on a flat slab of rock, forming the outline of a board. The pieces, small carved tokens, are worn smooth from years of handling, their edges rounded by countless games played in similar cold camps across the empire. You watch as fingers move the stones deliberately, eyes narrowing in concentration beneath heavy brows. The game is not just for distraction. It is a quiet battle of wits, a small kingdom fought without bloodshed, where strategy replaces swords and patience wins the day. Sometimes music rises softly, flutes carved from bone or wood, their notes, thin and haunting, weaving through the night air like a whispered lullaby. The melody is fragile, stretched thin by the cold, but persistent. A soldier hums along, his voice rough and low, the sound blending with the crackle of fire and the distant call of a night bird. The music does not shout or demand attention. It soothes. It carries with it memories of warmer days, of homes left behind, of faces that smile in dreams. Stories are told in this quiet circle, not grand tales of conquest or glory, but simple anecdotes, memories of childhood mischief, of strange encounters on dusty roads, of lost loves and small kindnesses. The words are spoken softly, each sentence folded in like a secret. There is no need to impress, no need to entertain, just the comfort of shared humanity in the face of a harsh world. Celebrations, when they come, are muted affairs. Perhaps a small victory in battle or the arrival of a rare ration. Then there is reason to raise a cup, to let the breath escape in a laugh that is not swallowed. The wine, dark and heavy, is passed in a circle, each man taking a sip with reverence, the warmth spreading like fire from throat to belly. Toasts are made in low tones, brief and sincere. There are no loud cheers, no songs that echo into the night. Instead, the moment is held delicately, like a fragile bird cradled in rough hands. Physical closeness is rare but meaningful. A hand, on a shoulder, a brief embrace, the shared space beneath a single cloak on the coldest nights, these small acts convey trust, solidarity, and comfort. In a world where the body is often armor, these moments strip away defenses and remind you of something more fragile, more human. As night deepens, the circle slowly dissolves. Men rise, stretching stiff limbs, eyes heavy with the promise of sleep. The fire dwindles to glowing embers, the music fades into silence. You are left with the faint warmth on your skin, the echo of laughter carried softly on the cold air, and the knowledge that even here, amid frozen battlefields and endless frost, life finds its quiet ways to bloom. The camp, for all its harshness and discipline, is not merely a place of war and survival. It is a fragile home for those who find themselves far from the hearths of birth. Within its shifting boundaries, relationships take root like fragile shoots pushing through frozen earth, bending under cold winds but stubbornly alive. You notice the quiet rhythms of connection woven into the everyday. A pair of soldiers sharing a thin blanket beneath the wide expanse of stars. Fingers brushing briefly as they adjust the coarse fabric, a touch fleeting but charged with unspoken comfort. Nearby, a whisper passed between friends. Words, too, soft for others to hear, carrying reassurance, shared fears, or memories of distant laughter. Family here is an idea stretched and reshaped by circumstance. Some carry the weight of actual kinship. Wives who trail behind armies, tending wounds and hearth fires, their presence a tether to the world left behind. Their faces, worn but resolute, speak of strength born not from battle, but from endurance. Their hands move tirelessly, mending clothes, preparing meager meals, soothing fevered brows. They are the unseen pillars holding the fragile structure together. Others carry the ghosts of family, memories that flicker in dreams or linger in the ache of absence. A letter read once and folded carefully, a carved wooden token hidden deep. In a pocket, the faint scent of a mother's perfume caught in the folds of a cloak. These are the quiet comforts that travelers clutch close, the invisible warmth against the pervasive chill. Friendship in this world is a lifeline. Bonds formed not in ease but in hardship tend to run deep, carved by shared marches through mud and frost. Trust is given sparingly, earned slowly, but when it is given, it becomes a shield stronger than any armor. You see it in the way men look, out for one another. An extra blanket folded without question, a piece of bread shared in silence, a hand steadied on a rocky path. Love is a whispered thing, rarely spoken aloud. It blooms in stolen moments, a brush of fingers, a glance held. Too long, a quiet word beneath the cover of darkness. It is both refuge and risk, a fragile hope in a world where tomorrow is never certain. Some couples find brief sanctuary beneath the canvas of a tent, their bodies pressed close against the cold, seeking warmth not just of fire, but of presence. Others carry the ache of longing, their hearts tied to distant homes and faces seen only in memory. The children of the camp are few but precious. Their laughter, rare and delicate, cuts through the solemn quiet like a small sunbeam. They run barefoot over frozen ground, their cheeks flushed with cold, their eyes wide with wonder and fear. They are reminders of life's stubbornness, the promise of renewal that no frost can extinguish. Even in the harshness of discipline, tenderness finds its way. A healer's soft hands soothe a fevered brow. A fellow soldier offers quiet words of encouragement before the day's march. An elder recounts stories by firelight, weaving threads of belonging and identity into the cold night air. You, too, are part of this woven tapestry. You carry the weight of absence and presence, of memory and hope. You find your place in the ebb and flow of shared existence, sometimes a listener, sometimes a comforter, sometimes simply a silent witness. Here, beneath the vast sky of the Persian Empire, amidst frozen battlefields and fleeting moments of warmth, the heart beats quietly but insistently. It beats in the closeness of bodies huddled for warmth, in the soft murmur of voices, in the tender rituals that transform a camp of soldiers into a fragile home. And as night deepens and the cold presses ever closer, you wrap yourself in these connections, small flames flickering against the vast darkness, finding in them a fragile, enduring light. In the stillness before dawn, when the camp lies shrouded in frost and silence, the unseen breath of the divine lingers close. Religion here is not an abstract thought, but a living presence, woven into the very fabric of daily existence, felt in the subtle movements of the body, the careful placement of offerings, the soft murmur of prayers whispered beneath the breath. The gods do not shout. They speak in quiet signs, in the flicker of flame, in the pattern of stars that wheel slowly overhead. You rise with the others, stepping lightly to avoid disturbing the rest. A small altar, crafted from simple stone and adorned with sprigs of dried herbs and a scattering of grains, waits in a quiet corner of the camp. The air here is thick with the scent of burnt resin and earth, a fragrance meant to bridge the gap between the mortal and the divine. Your fingers brush lightly over the rough surface of the altar, tracing its edges as though seeking reassurance in its solidity. The rituals are slow, deliberate acts. A pinch of powdered incense is caught between thumb and forefinger, sprinkled gently onto glowing embers until the smoke rises in thin, curling tendrils. The scent curls upward, carrying prayers and hopes skyward. Each movement is careful, precise, a dance choreographed by generations long gone yet still alive in the muscle memory of those who serve. Prayers are spoken in soft tones, their meaning layered and deep, filled with words older than the empire itself. They call upon Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, guardian of truth and light, to watch over the soldiers as they tread across frozen lands and uncertain paths. They ask for protection against unseen enemies, both mortal and spiritual, and for the strength to endure what the day may bring. The priests, clad in simple white robes that contrast with the muted colors of the camp, move among the soldiers with quiet dignity. Their faces are calm, eyes steady. They carry small vessels of sacred water and herbs, sprinkling them lightly over tents, weapons, and even the sleeping bodies of those who will soon rise to march. This blessing is both a shield and a comfort, a reminder that even in the coldest places the divine lingers. Sacred symbols are woven into garments, etched into leather straps or drawn on the ground with ash and charcoal. Each mark holds meaning: protection, courage, health, silent prayers worn like talismans. Soldiers tuck small charms into their belts or beneath their cloaks, stones smoothed by river currents, feathers plucked from rare birds, tokens gifted by loved ones before departure. The gods are not distant figures on lofty thrones. They are felt in the crackling fire, in the whisper of the wind through the tents, in the steady beating of a heart beneath layers of wool and armor. Their presence is a quiet assurance amid uncertainty, a fragile thread connecting flesh and spirit. On certain nights, when the moon is full and the stars hang heavy and bright, the camp gathers in a circle around the largest fire. The priests lead chants that rise and fall like the breath of the earth itself. The words are ancient, shaped by tongues long silent, their meaning shifting with the flickering flames. Soldiers join in softly, their voices blending into a murmuring wave that carries across the frozen plains. This ceremony is both a plea and a promise, a weaving of hope and endurance against the vastness of the world. These rituals shape the heartbeat of the camp, marking time not by hours or days, but by moments of reverence and remembrance. They are a shelter against the cold, both physical and spiritual, a way to find meaning amid hardship and uncertainty. And as the smoke rises, curling upward toward a sky unchanged by centuries, you feel yourself drawn into this quiet communion. You breathe in the scent of earth and resin. You speak words you do not fully understand, carried on the breath like a secret. You become part of the story, woven into the tapestry of belief and endurance that has carried countless souls through nights like this, on frozen battlefields. Long ago, in the quiet spaces between ritual and reality, where the mind seeks meaning in the shadowy corners of the unknown, superstition takes root like frost upon the window pane, thin, fragile, yet persistent. The soldiers who sleep on frozen battlefields carry with them not only swords and shields, but a rich tapestry of beliefs woven from whispered warnings and secret hopes, each superstition a small shield against the vast uncertainty that surrounds them. The dawn is often greeted with cautious eyes scanning the horizon, seeking signs in the flight of birds or the shifting patterns of clouds. A sudden crow's call is no mere sound but a message, sometimes a warning, sometimes a promise. To hear one near the camp's edge is to be reminded of death's quiet presence, a shadow that moves unseen through the frost. Yet, a lone eagle, soaring high, can signal protection, a blessing from the heavens for those brave enough to read its silent message. The soldiers are careful not to sneeze without covering their mouths. It is said that a sneeze, unchecked, can invite wandering spirits to slip inside the body, turning courage into fear or strength into weakness. They whisper remedies, touching iron, crossing fingers beneath heavy cloaks, or spitting lightly over the shoulder to ward off such spirits. These acts feel small but carry weight, performed with a quiet seriousness that belies their simplicity. Odd occurrences are always examined with care. If a soldier's shadow falls strangely, stretching longer than the body, or flickering oddly, in the firelight it is taken as a sign. Some believe it means the soul is unsettled, caught between worlds. Others whisper that a misaligned shadow invites illness or misfortune. At such times, a quick ritual may follow, walking a slow circle around the camp, scattering salt or throwing grains of barley to the wind to confuse wandering spirits. Hiccups, an irritant that troubles many in the cold, are thought to be tiny, curses crawling up the throat, a mischief of malevolent forces seeking entry. The remedy is often a breath held tight, or a sudden scare, a shout or a sharp clap, to chase away the invisible crawlers. Laughter often follows, a fragile resistance against the chill and the unseen. Certain days and times carry weight beyond their measure. The rising of specific stars or the changing of the moon's phases is watched closely. A new moon might be met with quiet trepidation, signaling a time when spirits roam more freely and the veil between worlds thins. Conversely, a full moon bathes the land in silver light, offering protection and clarity, making the cold less biting and the night less dark. Ominous dreams are shared only in whispers, often not at all. To speak of them too loudly is to invite their shadows into waking life. Soldiers speak in hushed tones of visions, of frozen rivers breaking open, of distant fires burning cold, of silent armies marching through endless snow. These dreams are warnings, messages to be pondered but not feared outright. Even animals are carriers of omen. A black cat crossing the camp's path is more than coincidence. It is a sign, often of ill fortune, and steps are taken to avoid its gaze. Horses are watched for unusual behavior, a sudden snort, a pawing of the ground, a tremor in their breath, signals that trouble may be near, whether from enemies or from unseen forces. The smallest details are infused with meaning. A dropped coin, a broken tool, a snapped twig in the nearby woods, each carries a story, a warning, or a promise depending on the teller. These beliefs offer a framework, a fragile order to a world otherwise ruled by chance and cold. Yet, beneath the fear and caution lies a subtle hope. Superstitions are not only shields against harm, but threads connecting the soldiers to the larger cosmos. They remind the weary that they are part of a vast, mysterious dance, one that includes gods and spirits, stars and shadows, the living and the dead. Each small ritual, each careful gesture, is a quiet claim to safety and endurance, and as you listen, wrapped in your woolen cloak beneath the ancient sky, you too become part of this whispered world. You breathe in its fears and hopes, its shadows and lights. You carry with you the fragile knowledge that in the coldest places, even the smallest signs can carry the greatest weight. The night is thick around you, the cold a steady whisper against your skin. But within this frost-bitten world, warmth is found in the stories told beside the fire, stories that have traveled down the generations like precious cargo, wrapped carefully in the folds of memory and imagination. These are not mere tales. They are the threads that bind the living to the dead, the mortal to the divine, weaving a tapestry of meaning across the vast expanse of the Persian Empire. You listen as the elder, his voice low and steady like the rumble of distant thunder, recounts the tale of Zahak, the dark king whose shoulders bore the weight of serpents, whose heart was poisoned by greed and cruelty. His story is one of shadow and warning, a reminder of the dangers of power unchecked, of the slow corruption that can creep into even the mightiest souls. The snakes on Zahak's back hiss not only in anger but in sorrow, voices echoing the pain of a land burdened by tyranny. But not all tales are heavy with warning. There is also the legend of Jamshid, the king who brought fire to humanity, who shaped the stars and taught men to build cities and craft the first garments from wool. His story shines with light and hope, a beacon of civilization rising from the wild. You can almost feel the warmth of that first fire, its glow stretching across the dark plains, chasing away the night's chill. Around the fire, these stories twist and turn, sometimes merging, sometimes diverging like tributaries feeding a great river. There are tales of mighty heroes who walked the earth, their feet leaving prints that became mountains, their breaths the winds that shaped the deserts. Their voices live on in the wind's howl and the rustling of ancient trees, speaking to those who listen with more than ears. Dragons, too, slither through the mists of these legends, not the fearsome beasts of later ages, but creatures of elemental power, guardians of secret knowledge and ancient treasures buried beneath the earth. Their scales shimmer in stories like frozen ice catching the dawn, their eyes holding the wisdom of centuries. To speak their names aloud is to invite respect and caution, for these creatures are neither friend nor foe but forces of nature, beyond human understanding. Myths speak also of the divine council, the Amisha Spentas, beings of light who guide the world's balance, embodying truth, righteousness, and the eternal struggle between order and chaos. Their presence is felt in the rhythm of seasons, in the turning of the stars, in the delicate balance that holds the empire together. Soldiers often carry symbols of these sacred figures, small tokens worn beneath armor, silent reminders of unseen protection. These stories are not told with haste or loud excitement, but with reverence, each word weighed as carefully as the stones lining a riverbed. The act of storytelling is itself a ritual. Eyes half closed, voices low, gestures slow. Time seems to stretch and soften as the past is breathed into the present. As you listen, the boundaries between now and then begin to blur. You find yourself, walking alongside heroes, feeling the heat of Jamshid's fire on your face, hearing the serpent's hiss in the wind. The cold night becomes a living canvas, painted with light and shadow, hope and warning, power and humility. In these myths and legends lies a deep comfort, a way to understand a world that is often harsh and indifferent. They remind you that you are part of a story much larger than yourself, carried by the same currents that have borne these tales across centuries. And as the firelight flickers, casting moving shapes on the faces around you, you feel the pulse of those ancient words within your own chest. A slow, steady beat connecting you to the countless souls who have come before, sleeping beneath the same stars, wrapped in the same cold, dreaming the same stories. In the stillness of the camp, where the cold settles deep into bones and the wind carries whispers of distant dangers, healing is a sacred, delicate art, woven from knowledge, intuition, and ancient belief. The soldiers, wrapped in layers of wool and silence, bear not only the weight of armor and weapons but also the burdens of wounds, aches, and unseen sicknesses. To tend these is to tend to the very pulse of life itself. There is no bustling infirmary here, no sterile chamber with gleaming instruments. Healing takes place in quiet corners of the camp, a circle of straw beneath a worn cloak, a small bundle of herbs carefully prepared, a gentle hand pressed to a fevered forehead. The healer moves softly among the men, their eyes calm and steady, their touch careful and measured as if fearing to disturb a fragile flame. The medical wisdom carried here is a mixture of observation, tradition, and the unseen world. Injuries are treated with poultices made from crushed plants, sage, myrtle, and thyme, whose bitter scents fill the air as they are ground and mixed with water or animal fats. These balms are applied with reverence, their coolness a brief relief, against the burning pain of wounds. Bones broken in battle are set as best they can be, wrapped tightly with strips of cloth dipped in resin to hold them firm. There is no anesthesia, no painkiller beyond the strength of will and the soft murmurs of prayer. The healer's voice may rise in quiet chant, invoking protection and swift recovery from the gods who watch over flesh and spirit alike. Illness, especially in the biting cold, is feared almost as much as the sword. Fevers are met with the cooling touch of water, the sweet taste of honey mixed with crushed herbs to soothe aching throats. The sick are isolated gently, given space beneath heavy blankets, their bodies tended with the slow patience of those who know the thin line between life and death. The boundary between medicine and magic is thin here. Many believe that spirits dwell within the body, sometimes helpful, sometimes harmful. When sickness lingers or wounds refuse to heal, the healer may perform rituals to expel malevolent forces. Smoke from sacred herbs curls through the air as the healer chants softly, tracing symbols in the dust or drawing lines on the skin with ash. These ceremonies are as vital as any balm or bandage, offering hope where the body falters. Bloodletting is practiced cautiously, believed to release the poisons of imbalance. A small cut, a carefully placed leech, serves as a release valve for the body's troubled humors. Though painful, it is welcomed as a necessary step toward restoration. The healer also attends to the mind and spirit, recognizing that despair and fear can wound as deeply as any blade. A kind word, a steady hand, a story told beside a dying fire may be the medicine a soldier needs most. The healer becomes a keeper of secrets and sorrows, a quiet witness to suffering and resilience. In this harsh world, healing is never guaranteed. Yet the acts themselves, whether rubbing ointment into cracked skin or whispering prayers over a broken limb, create a fragile bond between the living and the sacred. They are small acts of defiance against the cold and silence, gestures that affirm life in the face of overwhelming odds. And as you sit quietly, feeling the roughness of a healer's touch or the faint scent of crushed herbs carried on the breeze, you become part of this ancient dance of survival and care. A soft promise that even on frozen battlefields, warmth and healing may still be found. The shadow of death is never far in this cold world, moving silently among the living like a quiet breath that chills the air. When a soldier falls, whether to blade, cold, or unseen illness, the camp shifts subtly, a collective intake of breath held in respect, sorrow, and the heavy weight of the inevitable. Death here is both a presence and a passage, wrapped in rituals as old as the earth beneath the frozen soil. When the body is found still and cold, the first act is tenderness. The fallen are not left to the frost but gently wrapped in cloth, often a shroud woven from wool, coarse yet sacred. Their hands are folded across their chest, fingers brushing lightly over the heart, a silent gesture to hold the spirit close. The camp grows quieter, as if in mourning, voices dropping to whispers or falling away entirely. The priests come forward with their calm certainty, carrying vessels of water and herbs. They sprinkle the sacred water over the body, a blessing, to cleanse the soul for its journey beyond. Incense burns softly, the smoke rising in slow spirals that seem to carry prayers skyward, bridging the world of the living and the realm of the gods. Burial is a solemn rite, practiced swiftly before the earth hardens beneath relentless cold. A shallow grave is dug, careful hands breaking frozen ground, the soil stiff and reluctant to release its grasp. The body is laid with respect, often with small tokens, carved stones, scraps of cloth, or pieces of bread offered to accompany the spirit on its passage. These are gifts of protection and remembrance, fragile bridges between this life and the next. The grave is covered gently, the dirt pressing softly over the shrouded form. Stones are piled on top, markers to hold memory in place. There are no grand monuments here, no carved epitaphs, only the quiet assurance that the earth will hold the fallen until the final day. The living gather briefly afterward, their faces drawn and pale in the dim light. They may share a silent moment of prayer or a whispered story, recalling the fallen's deeds without boast or lament. Mourning is private, held in the heart and in quiet acts, a tightened cloak, a lowered gaze, the soft turning of the earth. Belief in the afterlife is woven deeply into the fabric of existence. The soul is thought to journey through a realm beyond mortal sight, crossing bridges and passing guardians, seeking rest in a place of light and peace. The righteous are said to join the Amesha Spentas, those divine beings who embody goodness and truth, living forever in a paradise untouched by frost or sorrow. Death is not seen as an end, but a transformation, a release from the cold grip of the physical world to a warmer, eternal embrace. This belief offers comfort amid hardship, a soft light shining through the shadowed veil of mortality. Yet the living do not forget. The memory of the fallen lingers like a faint flame, carried in stories told beside the fire in the silent rituals of remembrance and in the careful tending of graves when the earth thaws with the coming of spring. And so, as you watch the earth close over a fallen comrade, as the smoke of incense fades into the cold air and the stars wheel silently overhead, you feel the weight of both loss and hope. The cycle of life and death turns quietly, endlessly, beneath the endless sky, an ancient dance of shadow and light, of endings and beginnings, held in the breath between. In every camp, beneath the heavy weight of duty and silence, there is a figure who moves with a different rhythm, a soul who treads lightly on the edges of order and chaos, whose laughter bubbles quietly beneath the frost. This is the fool, the outsider, the trickster, a presence both unsettling and comforting, a flicker of unpredictability amid the steady march of time. He wears no armor, nor carries the usual weapons, but his eyes are sharp and his smile knowing. His clothes are mismatched, worn thinner in some places and patched hastily in others, as if his life is stitched together from remnants and whispers. His voice is soft but carries a melody of mischief, a gentle teasing that never crosses the line into cruelty. He moves among the soldiers like a shadow weaving between pillars, never quite seen but always felt. The fool is not a fool in the way you might expect. He is a keeper of secrets, a subtle observer who speaks truths wrapped in riddles. When the camp grows too quiet, too heavy with the weight of fear or fatigue, he is there to lighten the air, a sly comment, a harmless trick, a quick smile that breaks the tension. He knows the power of laughter, especially in a place where hope often feels as fragile as frost on a blade. His stories are strange and winding, tales from far-off places, from deserts where the sand sings and rivers vanish beneath the earth, from cities where voices rise in endless markets. He tells of people who walk backwards to confuse their enemies, of herbs that cause the dead to dream, of mirrors that capture the soul's reflection. The soldiers listen, eyes wide beneath heavy lids, caught between disbelief and wonder. In his stories, the world beyond the frozen battlefield becomes a place of magic and mystery, a counterpoint to the stark reality that surrounds them. He is also a trickster in the practical sense, a master of small rebellions against the relentless order. He might hide a commander's helmet beneath a pile of straw, or swap two soldiers' cloaks to confuse the guards. These acts are never cruel, only playful jabs at the rigidity that threatens to smother the camp's fragile humanity. His laughter follows him like a trail of light, a reminder that even in darkness there is room for joy. Yet beneath the humor there is wisdom. The fool sees what others do not. He notices the way the wind shifts before a storm, the faint tremor in a man's voice, the subtle signs of an approaching illness. His presence is a comfort, a signal that not all is lost, that in this harsh world there remains space for kindness, for mischief, for connection. Sometimes when the fire burns low and the camp is hushed, the fool will sit quietly beside a soldier, offering a whispered word of encouragement or a shared smile. In those moments he is not a jester but a friend, a fragile flame flickering softly against the cold. And so, as you watch him move through the shadows, weaving his quiet magic, you feel a small light stirring within yourself. The fool's world is one of contradictions, light and shadow, truth and jest, sorrow and laughter, all intertwined, in the delicate dance of survival beneath the ancient Persian sky. In the sprawling world of the Persian Empire, where vast armies march beneath endless horizons, the power figure stands apart, not merely by rank or robes, but by the subtle aura that surrounds them. Their presence is felt before they speak, like a stillness in the air that hushes voices and slows footsteps. They command not by force alone, but by the weight of tradition, the whispered reverence of gods and the silent obedience of those who understand the fragile order of things. Imagine the king, seated high upon a carved throne beneath a tent woven of rich fabrics that catch the dying light, their face calm and unreadable. Their eyes hold the knowledge of many winters, of battles fought and treaties forged. Their hands rest lightly on the armrests, fingers curled with a practiced grace, as if every gesture is measured and meaningful. Around them, courtiers and advisers murmur quietly, careful not to disturb the sacred rhythm of their sovereign's thought. The king's clothing is a statement of power. Robes dyed in deep hues, embroidered with gold thread that glimmers softly, catching the light like stars in a winter sky. A crown or circlet rests lightly upon the brow, its weight both literal and symbolic, a reminder of the burden carried silently. The scent of incense lingers in the air, blending with the faint aroma of oils used to soothe the skin and mask the chill. Speech from the king is deliberate, measured, often spare. Every word carries weight, every pause pregnant with meaning. When commands are given, they ripple outward like the gentle unfolding of a wave, never rushed, never harsh. Even silence from such a figure can speak volumes, a quiet decree more powerful than thunder. If the figure is a judge, the quiet is of a different sort, an authority born not of blood, but of law. Their robes are simpler, heavier, the fabric muted but dignified. Their gaze is sharp, piercing, weighing each word, each plea, with a balance that feels both just and merciless. They sit in chambers lined with scrolls and tablets, the scent of parchment and wax heavy in the air. When they speak, their voice is calm but unyielding, a reminder that order must be maintained even in the face of hardship. A priest, in turn, carries a different kind of power, one rooted in the sacred and unseen. Clad in white or muted hues, their presence is gentle yet commanding. Their hands, often stained with ash or herbs, move with ritual grace as they perform ceremonies meant to bridge the mortal and divine. Their voice rises and falls in chants, prayers that ripple through the camp like a soft wind, soothing and unsettling all at once. The priest's eyes reflect a deep connection to mysteries beyond human sight, and their words carry a weight that can comfort or warn. Those who serve these power figures do so with a mixture of awe and caution. To stand before them is to be reminded of one's place, small in the vast machinery of empire subject to forces both earthly and divine. Yet there is also a strange comfort in this structure, a promise that order exists amid chaos, that the world's vastness is held by hands steady and sure. Power here is not worn loudly but carried like a secret, an invisible thread that runs beneath the surface of speech and gesture, of clothing and silence. It shapes the rhythms of the camp, the flow of command and obedience, the fragile balance that holds the empire's heart beating steady. As you watch this figure, their presence a quiet pulse beneath the endless sky, you feel the weight of history settling softly around you, the steady breath of centuries, the slow turning of fate's wheel, the enduring dance of power and humility beneath the cold stars. In the endless expanse of the Persian Empire, where armies march and kings decree, there is another world, the world of the peasant. These are the hands that till the earth, the backs that bear the weight of harvests, the steady pulse of a land both harsh and generous. Their lives are woven from the soil itself, marked by seasons and labor, by patience and enduring hope. You meet a peasant one morning, his face weathered like cracked leather, eyes softened by years beneath sun and wind. His clothes are simple, homespun, linen and wool, patched and faded, smelling faintly of earth and sweat. He speaks slowly, his voice low and calm, shaped by the rhythms of field and hearth rather than court and camp. He tells you of mornings before dawn, when the sky is still, a deep, endless black, and the air holds the promise of frost. The work begins then, with hands chilled but steady, breaking ground, sowing seed, tending to ancient terraces carved into hillsides. The soil is stubborn, sometimes unyielding, but it gives what it can: barley, wheat, vegetables, and the peasants. Faith is as constant as the turning seasons. His days are long, filled with tasks both heavy and delicate, repairing irrigation channels that snake like veins through the land, mending fences worn thin by wind and rain, guiding oxen slow and patient as they pull plows through stubborn earth. There is no glory here, no grand tale of heroism. Just the quiet persistence of life sustained against the odds. Food is sparse but treasured. Barley bread, dried fruits, and the occasional salted fish from distant rivers. Each meal is simple, shared with family around a small fire or beneath the shade of a tree. Stories pass from elder to child. Tales of ancestors who walked these lands before, of gods who watch over fields and harvests, of days when the earth was young and the world full of promise. The peasant's world is not without hardship. Winters are long and cruel, the cold biting into bones and soul alike. Drought can wither crops and hopes. Taxes imposed by distant rulers weigh heavily, taking what little is earned. Yet even in hardship, there is resilience, a stubborn refusal to yield, a deep-rooted connection to land and kin that cannot be broken. The peasant speaks of family with quiet pride, of children taught to work with gentle hands, of elders who pass down wisdom like precious seed, of bonds forged in shared toil and simple joys. Love here is steady, rooted in daily acts rather than grand declarations. There is a wisdom in his gaze, a patient knowing that life's true wealth lies not in gold or power, but in the enduring cycles of earth and sky, in the fragile promise of each new seed sown, in the small miracles of growth and renewal. As you listen, the world of soldiers and kings seems distant and dreamlike, replaced by the tangible, earthy reality of fields and harvests, of sweat and soil, of life lived close to the bone, yet rich in its own quiet dignity. In the peasant's tale, you find the heart of the empire, not in its conquests or courts, but in the slow, steady beat of hands that work the land, in the whispered prayers carried on the wind, in the enduring hope beneath an endless sky. The morning air is crisp and still as you step into the bustling marketplace, a shifting tapestry of colors, sounds, and scents that ripple through the city like a living river. Here the merchant awakens, a figure both familiar and elusive, whose fortunes rise and fall with the turn of the caravan wheel and the flicker of a buyer's gaze. His robes are finely woven, though well-worn from travel, dyed in muted earth, tones with subtle patterns embroidered along the hems. A leather satchel hangs from his shoulder, heavy with coins, scales, and parchment scrolls. The scent of spice and leather clings to him, a fragrant reminder of distant lands and long journeys. The merchant's day begins before the sun fully rises, with the careful inspection of goods. Silk from Far Eastern looms, fragrant frankincense. From the southern deserts, copper vessels hammered by skilled artisans, jars of honey golden as captured sunlight. Each item is examined with practiced eyes, weighing value not only in coins, but in stories. The hands that crafted it, the roads it traveled, the markets it has yet to reach. Bargaining is an art, a delicate dance of words and glances. The merchant approaches buyers with a calm smile, voice low and measured, offering goods with the promise of prosperity. Prices rise and fall with subtle nods, with the shifting of weight from foot to foot, with the quiet calculation of trust and risk. A single word can seal a deal or send a customer walking away into the crowd. Conversations are punctuated by the soft clink of coins and the rustle of fabric. The merchant knows the value of patience, of timing, when to press, when to yield, when to let silence speak louder than words. There is a rhythm to the exchange, a slow weaving of connection that transcends mere commerce. The marketplace is alive with more than trade. It is a crossroads of culture and gossip, where travelers bring news from distant realms, where stories are swapped like precious goods. The merchant listens carefully, absorbing whispers of political shifts, tales of bandits along caravan routes, rumors of new rulers or old enemies. Information is currency as valuable as gold. Midday brings a brief respite. The merchant finds shade beneath a canopy, sharing a simple meal of dried fruits and flatbread with trusted companions. The conversation is quieter now, more reflective, touched with the fatigue of travel and negotiation. Yet even here, the pulse of commerce never fully rests. As the afternoon sun wanes, preparations begin for the next journey. The merchant inspects caravans, ensuring camels are well fed, goods, securely packed, guards alert. There is a sense of constant motion, a restless energy that hums beneath the surface, a knowledge that prosperity depends on movement, on crossing borders both physical and cultural. Evening descends with the soft glow of lanterns, and the marketplace slowly empties, leaving behind echoes of the day's deals and dreams. The merchant retires to a modest dwelling, where accounts are reviewed by flickering candlelight, where plans for future travels take shape in ink and parchment. In this life of negotiation and navigation, the merchant embodies the empire's vast reach, the blending of peoples, goods, and ideas that pulse beneath its surface. His story is one of quiet ambition, of risk and reward, of connections forged not with sword or decree, but with words and trust. And as you listen to the rhythms of his day, you feel the subtle heartbeat of a world in motion, an ancient dance, of exchange and endurance beneath the endless Persian sky. The traveler moves with a quiet purpose, a solitary figure tracing the ancient roads that weave through deserts, mountains, and cities alike. Cloaked against the cold, their footsteps echo softly on worn stones and dust, each step a story, each mile a meditation. They carry no weapons but the weight of experience and a heart full of questions. In the stillness of an evening camp, with stars spilling silver light across the sky, the traveler settles beside a fire, the flickering flames casting long shadows on the rough ground. Their voice is low, intimate, as if confessing not just to those gathered but to the night itself, a slow unraveling of thoughts and memories shaped by the road. They speak of places both wondrous and cruel, cities alive with the clamor of merchants, the smell of spices thick in the air, desolate stretches where silence presses heavy like a shroud. They speak of faces met and lost, of kindnesses given in fleeting moments and betrayals hidden beneath smiles. The road, they say, teaches harsh truths about the world and about oneself. The traveler confesses the loneliness that clings like a second skin, the nights spent beneath alien stars, the distance from hearth and kin, the ache of endless horizons. Yet there is also a deep gratitude for the freedom found in motion, for the chance to witness the vast tapestry of humanity, to touch lives briefly and then move on. They speak softly of the fears that shadow every journey, the threat of bandits. In the dark, the uncertainty of food and shelter, the precarious balance between trust and caution. Each step forward is an act of courage, a quiet defiance against the unknown. Yet amid these hardships, the traveler has found moments of grace. A child's smile in a dusty village, the shared warmth of a fire with strangers, the silent beauty of dawn breaking over distant hills. These are the treasures carried not in pack or purse, but in the heart. The traveler's story is one of contradictions, hope woven with despair, solitude mingling with connection, danger shadowed by moments of unexpected kindness. Their confession is not a plea for sympathy, but an offering of truth, a reminder that the path, however difficult, is a journey worth taking. As you listen, wrapped in your own cloak beneath the ancient sky, you become part of this unfolding story. You feel the road's cold breath, the fire's warm glow, the slow unfolding of a life lived between worlds. And in this quiet confession, there is a shared humanity, a fragile thread connecting traveler and listener, past and present, across the vast and timeless landscape of the Persian Empire. In the heart of the camp, where the cold bites sharp and silence often weighs heavy, there are moments when laughter, soft, quiet and unguarded, breaks through the frost like a single flame, in the dark. This is one such story, a tale told in hushed tones around the dwindling firelight, remembered for its oddity as much as its humanity. It begins with a man, not a hero, not a commander, but an ordinary soldier with more misfortune than fortune. His name is barely recalled, but his deed lives on, whispered among the tents like a secret charm against the harshness of life. One morning, as the camp was stirring beneath a sky still thick with stars, this man decided to crown himself king. The reasons for the sudden declaration are lost to time, but some say it was a dream, a fevered vision under the weight of cold and exhaustion. Others whisper it was a jest, a desperate joke to ease the relentless march of days. Whatever the cause, he fashioned a crown from scraps of leather and twigs, placing it awkwardly atop his tangled hair. He proclaimed his reign with a solemnity that bordered on the absurd, declaring himself ruler of a kingdom no one had ever heard of, a land that existed only in his mind's eye. The camp watched with a mixture of bewilderment and amusement as he paraded among tents, issuing decrees to invisible subjects and demanding tributes of stale bread and water. At first, some soldiers played along, bowing with exaggerated respect, tipping invisible hats and offering imaginary gifts. Laughter curled softly around the campfire, a gentle balm against the cold weight of their shared hardship. The man, caught in his own world, seemed to find warmth and meaning in his crown, if only for a fleeting moment. But as the sun climbed higher and the frost began to thaw, reality pressed in. The man, crowned but forgotten by his own mind, could not remember the name of his kingdom. His speeches grew tangled, his subjects vanished into silence. The crown slipped from his head, and with it the fragile illusion dissolved. The soldiers returned to their duties. The king returned to his place among them, a man marked not by power but by the kindness of those who laughed gently with him, rather than at him. The story, carried forward by whispers and smiles, became a shared secret, a reminder that even in the harshest places, humanity finds ways to soften the edges of suffering. This tale is not a mockery, but a quiet testament to resilience, the small rebellions of spirit that survive beneath the weight of history and frost. It is the laughter that rises softly in the dark, the flicker of light that refuses to be extinguished. And as you listen to this absurd story, wrapped in the warmth of a shared moment beneath the vast Persian sky, you feel the gentle pulse of life beating quietly in the cold, a reminder that even kings made of leather and twigs can leave a mark on the hearts of those who remember. You wake slowly, your body heavy beneath layers of wool and linen, the cold air pressing softly against, your skin like a whisper. The sky outside your tent is still a deep, muted gray, the first light stretching lazily across the horizon as if reluctant to disturb the sleeping earth. Your breath rises in gentle clouds, mingling with the faint scent of smoke and straw. Your eyes flutter open, adjusting to the dimness around you. The tent walls ripple faintly with a breeze that carries the chill of dawn, brushing against your cheek like a soft, cool hand. You feel the roughness of the straw beneath you, uneven and damp in places, a constant reminder of the earth's stubborn presence beneath your resting place. The sounds of morning begin quietly. A distant horse shifts in its stall, nostrils flaring. Softly, somewhere close by, a soldier clears his throat, the dry rasp echoing faintly. The faint scrape of a blade being sharpened reaches your ears, steady and rhythmic. There is no hurry here, only the slow unfolding of the day's first breaths. You stretch your limbs carefully, joints stiff from the cold night, muscles waking with gentle resistance. Your fingers trace the coarse fabric of your cloak, pulling it tighter around your shoulders. The chill lingers, but there is a subtle promise in the air, a slow warmth growing beneath the pale light. Rising from your resting place, you step outside the tent into the quiet camp. The ground crunches softly beneath your feet. Frozen earth. giving way just enough to mark your passage. The sky is a gradient of soft blues and grays, the sun still hidden, but its presence felt in the gentle light that begins to soften the shadows. The world is hushed, as if holding its breath before the day begins in earnest. You breathe deeply, tasting the cold air, crisp and sharp with the scent of wood smoke and earth. Your footsteps carry you slowly past rows of tents, past figures wrapped in cloaks who move with measured purpose, preparing quietly for what lies ahead. A small fire flickers nearby, its orange glow a tiny beacon against the gray dawn. You pause, letting its warmth brush against your skin, feeling the contrast between fire and frost like a soft pulse. Around the camp, others gather, voices low and steady as they share the first moments of the day, exchanging nods, tending to gear, moving with practiced calm. The morning is a slow unfolding, not rushed, but deliberate. It carries the weight of survival and the quiet hope of renewal. You join the rhythm, becoming part of the gentle choreography that marks the start of another day beneath the endless sky. When one contemplates the glory of the ancient Persian Empire, the sweeping conquests, the shimmering banners, the monumental architecture, it is easy to overlook the slow, uneventful rhythm of daily life within the ranks of its soldiers, especially in winter, and especially when it came to the unremarkable, often unpleasant task of cooking food under harsh conditions. Indeed, few things could better represent the quiet monotony of military survival than a Persian soldier attempting to prepare a meal in the snow-covered highlands of Media or the barren plains near the Caspian Sea. During the Achaemenid period, which began around 550 BCE under Cyrus the Great, the Persian military machine was vast, diverse, and logistically complex. Yet, when winter came, the machinery slowed to a crawl. Supply lines froze, pack animals tired quickly, and so the matter of food, simple, hot food, became not only essential but also excruciatingly mundane. There was no central kitchen. No, field stoves issued from the satrap's office. Each soldier, depending on rank and wealth, was expected to prepare his own sustenance. In elite divisions, particularly the Immortals, there may have been shared fires and cooks, but among common troops, the winter routine was mostly the same. Wake up, shiver, gather firewood that probably did not exist, and then cook whatever could be made edible. Fire itself was a persistent problem. While the Persians had mastered the use of portable brass braziers for smaller units, these devices were rare and typically reserved for officers. Most soldiers relied on hastily assembled pits, shallow depressions dug with a dull dagger or simply scooped out by hand. Dried animal dung was the preferred fuel, as it was both abundant and slightly less wet than the snow-covered sticks scattered across the cold terrain. Once a fire was managed, after repeated attempts and many cough-inducing failures, attention turned to the food. The standard ration issued during winter campaigns was a mix of dried barley cakes, preserved dates, and salted meat. The meat was typically mutton or goat, heavily salted to the point of near inedibility. Before consumption, it needed to be soaked or boiled to soften the fibers. And so, soldiers gathered snow in small bronze pots, waiting long minutes, sometimes hours, for it to melt and then boil. Those without pots, which was not uncommon, had to improvise. A popular, though entirely inefficient method involved wrapping meat in layers of oiled cloth and heating it near the embers until it released some warmth. The result was less of a meal and more of a warm chew. Sometimes it remained frozen inside, causing tooth pain and digestive rebellion. The barley cakes were more forgiving. These flat, rock-hard discs could be briefly heated on hot stones or near a flame. Occasionally, soldiers would mash them into a coarse powder and mix them into snowmelt, creating a porridge that was both bland and barely edible. A few drops of goat fat, when available, could improve the texture, though rarely the taste. A recurring issue was smoke. Smoke revealed location. Fires were often limited or extinguished quickly, particularly if the unit was camped near hostile borders or navigating occupied territory. Therefore, much of the cooking had to be done low and slow, with minimal flame. This meant more waiting, more chewing of half-warmed meat, more stomach aches. On particularly cold nights, some soldiers would cook stones. Not for food, of course, but for heat. Small river stones would be placed in or near the fire, then transferred into cloaks or bedrolls. These stones radiated warmth for about 20 minutes, offering brief comfort as the soldier gnawed on salted goat and stared at the same soup-colored sky. There were also instances of communal stewing. If a unit had access to a cauldron, and if multiple soldiers pooled their supplies, they might attempt a kind of rudimentary stew. This involved adding chunks of meat, stale grains, and whatever wild herbs could be gathered into a boiling pot. The resulting gruel was often too thin and too bitter, but the process was oddly social. Soldiers would share stories as the pot simmered, which gave them something to do besides sitting in silence and feeling their toes go numb. Spices, though emblematic of Persian culture, were rarely part of the wartime winter diet. Saffron, cumin, cinnamon, these were luxuries left behind in Persepolis and Susa. On campaign, soldiers were lucky to come across a sprig of wild thyme or the occasional garlic bulb. Sometimes they would chew tree bark, not for flavor, but to distract themselves from hunger. Hunger and boredom were, in fact, constant companions. Water was another issue. Snow provided abundance, but it had to be melted, and melting snow was laborious. Those who drank it cold and raw often suffered stomach problems. To improve taste and reduce risk, a small handful of herbs might be added to the water. This was called warm leaf water. It was not tea. It was merely water that no longer tasted only of ice and metal. Hunting was rare and largely ineffective in snow-covered terrain. While some soldiers carried bows, they were often too cold and exhausted to hunt game. Occasionally, if a rabbit or bird was caught, it would be roasted over the fire. Slowly, carefully, with hope, and it would be eaten entirely, bones, fat, and all. The only reliable source of variety came from preserved items brought from home, dried apricots, nuts, or even hard cheese. These were gifts from family, and they were rationed like gold. A single fig might be split across 3 days. A handful of pistachios might be saved for a night of particularly biting wind, and so the routine continued. Night after night, snow melting, barley cake burning, salted meat softening slightly over. Weak flames. The food did not nourish the soul. It merely sustained the body long enough to march, to freeze, and to fight another day. Historians rarely document these details. And yet, perhaps nothing captures the winter life of a Persian soldier more truthfully than the image of a man hunched over a dung fire, gnawing on boiled goat, wondering why the barley cake always tastes like dirt no matter how long it is cooked. It was not glorious. It was not fast. It was not memorable. And perhaps that is why it is worth remembering. It is a curious truth of ancient warfare that while battles were loud and brief, sleep was long and quiet, though not necessarily restful. Persian soldiers, like all ancient warriors, spent far more time trying to sleep than they did fighting, especially in winter, and especially in the remote, frozen places their kings liked to conquer. Sleeping arrangements in the Achaemenid military were never luxurious, but they were particularly austere during cold-weather campaigns. Tents were a privilege. Not every soldier had one. The elite, officers, envoys, commanders, and the famed immortals were often provided with animal skin shelters supported by wooden poles or spears, but the average infantryman had to rely on simpler methods. This usually meant sleeping under a thin woolen blanket on the ground, in a dugout depression known charmingly as a soldier's hollow. To make one's hollow, a soldier would spend the last light of day scooping snow or frozen soil into a crude oval. The aim was to lower one's body slightly below wind level. Sometimes pine needles, straw, or even dried dung was layered at the bottom to create a kind of primitive mattress. This was mostly symbolic, as these materials did little to insulate from the frost-laced earth. If a soldier was particularly lucky, he might own a roll of felt or a second blanket. This could be wrapped around the legs, which were the first to go numb during the night. Some soldiers attempted to sleep sitting upright against their shields, their cloaks pulled tightly around them. This did not improve warmth, but did reduce the risk of waking up with one's back frozen to the ground. Footwear was kept on, always. Removing boots in the snow meant waking up without toes. This rule was sacred and unspoken. Soldiers would sleep, fully clothed, sometimes with their heads wrapped in spare cloth or their own sleeves to conserve breath heat. Helmets were placed at arm's reach, not because of attack, but because they made decent bowls when inverted and could catch melting frost in the morning. There was no standard sleeping schedule. Units camped in winter typically used rotating watches, with a few soldiers remaining awake while others attempted sleep. Fire watches were especially important. Flames had to be fed regularly, or they would die, and then so would any hope of warmth. Most soldiers rotated in 2 to 3 hour shifts, unless morale was low, in which case nobody followed the plan, and everyone froze together. Noise discipline was generally observed, but snoring was common. Groaning was more common, and the occasional panicked shuffle from someone dreaming of home or being stabbed in their sleep happened nightly. A soldier's sleep was shallow, rarely uninterrupted, not by enemies but by nature. Howling winds, snowdrifts settling, and, frequently, the need to relieve oneself in the freezing dark. There were no latrines. That was a summer luxury. In winter, soldiers would walk a short distance from camp, dig a shallow hole, sometimes not even that, and return as quickly as possible. This chore was made worse by the layers of cloth and leather that had to be untied or shifted. Many simply held it until dawn, despite the discomfort. For warmth, some men slept in pairs or groups, backs pressed together, breath fog mingling. This was not considered shameful. It was considered smart. A pair of soldiers might wrap themselves in one blanket and rotate positions during the night, so each had a turn against the warmer side. In larger groups, soldiers slept in circles, or lines, sharing body heat like hibernating animals. This, of course, depended on trust. Nobody wanted to be stabbed by a tentmate dreaming of the enemy. Animals also provided heat. If the unit had pack goats or dogs, soldiers would huddle near them. Horses were too valuable to share space with, but some soldiers would sleep beside the animal's body, using its flank as a barrier against the wind. In a few desperate accounts, sick or dying animals were sacrificed for their hides, which were wrapped around the shoulders of freezing men. The warmth was effective, though. The smell was unbearable. Sleepwalking was not rare. Fatigue, hunger, and cold caused some men to rise in the night and wander a few steps into the snow, only to be found standing still, disoriented, or muttering. These individuals were gently guided back to their holes or, if particularly insensible, allowed to lie down wherever they collapsed, which was not always a kindness. There was no pillow. Some used their folded cloak. Others used their packs. The unlucky used nothing. Dreams, if they came, were dull or anxious. Many dreamed of food, hot soup, roasted lamb, honey bread. Others dreamed of warmth, baths, hearths, the sun. These were comforting at first, but upon waking, left the soldier more miserable than before. Sickness spread easily in the sleeping quarters. Coughs, colds, and skin rashes were shared like gossip. There was no real treatment, just more wrapping, more silence, more prayer. A soldier who became too ill to move was sometimes carried by comrades, but more often left behind with a few supplies in the hope that a rear unit would find him. This happened less due to cruelty and more due to exhaustion. One can only carry so much when one is already half frozen. When dawn came, the rising sun offered little relief. Its light was gray, its warmth insufficient. Soldiers would rise slowly, knees stiff, backs sore. They scraped frost off their beards and helmets. They folded blankets stiff with ice. Then they prepared the fire again, if there was wood, if. The wind had not blown it away, if the will remained, and yet, despite this long, cold monotony, soldiers did sleep. Not well, not long, but enough. Enough to march another day, enough to carry a spear, enough to remember the name of the king they served, even if the reason why was lost in the snow. The details of these nights have been largely forgotten, buried beneath the grand stories of battle and conquest. But if you were to walk the ancient paths of Media or Bactria in winter and listen closely, you might still hear the distant cough of a soldier half awake, muttering about the cold, then rolling over in a hollowed patch of snow, chasing sleep like a shadow that never quite arrives. The first light grows steadily, filtering through the thin fabric of tents, casting soft, shifting shadows that play gently upon the frozen ground. The air remains crisp, the cold wrapping itself around your limbs like a familiar, unyielding cloak. But the stillness of dawn begins to stir, and with it, the camp's heartbeat quickens, measured and deliberate. You step out into the chill, boots crunching softly against the frost-hardened earth. The scent of damp straw and wood smoke lingers, mingling with the faint aroma of animal musk from the nearby horses. You breathe deeply, feeling the cold air fill your lungs, sharp, clean, and waking every sense. Around you, the camp moves with quiet efficiency. Soldiers begin tending to their gear, checking the fit of armor, oiling leather straps, securing weapons with practiced hands. The dull scrape of stone against blade echoes softly, steady as a heartbeat, a ritual that both prepares and soothes. Some gather near the communal fire, coaxing embers back to life with gentle breaths, coaxing the flicker of warmth that will fuel the day. The rising smoke drifts lazily upward, a thin gray ribbon against the pale sky. Others carry water from the nearby stream, the heavy skins slapping softly against hips as they move with careful steps. You hear the soft murmur of low conversations, words exchanged in hushed tones, plans for the march, reminders of watch shifts, the subtle exchange of news carried on the wind. The language is calm, deliberate, lacking urgency but filled with the weight of responsibility. The animals, too, awaken fully. Horses snort softly, stamping frozen hooves as their handlers brush away the stiffened hair and adjust harnesses with gentle care. Their breath curls like smoke in the cold air, a living warmth amidst the frost. You find yourself drawn into the rhythm, hands steady as you prepare your own gear. The leather straps are cold beneath your fingers, the metal buckles stiff but reliable. Each movement is purposeful, adjusting, securing, testing. This is a silent communion between man and equipment, a necessary preparation for the day's demands. The camp's pace remains measured. There is no haste, no loud commands. Instead, a shared understanding moves between men, a mutual respect born from countless dawns spent together beneath the cold sky. Each action flows into the next, a slow, deliberate dance of readiness and endurance. As the sun climbs higher, casting a pale glow over the frost-etched landscape, you feel the shift, the day's work beginning in earnest. The cold remains, sharp and persistent, but so too does a quiet strength drawn from the steady hands and steady hearts gathered here. And so you move forward, part of a world that wakes not with clamor, but with the slow, enduring breath of life, beneath the endless Persian sky. The sun now hangs higher, its pale light softening the cold edges of the morning frost, yet the air remains crisp and biting against your cheeks. The camp moves into a gentle pause as the steady rhythm of labor gives way to the necessity of nourishment. The midday meal is no grand feast, but a humble ritual, simple sustenance shared in quiet companionship. You find yourself seated upon a roughly hewn log or the frozen ground, your cloak drawn tightly against the lingering chill. Before you rests, a small bowl, rough and unadorned, filled with a thick barley porridge, dense and slightly gritty, its warmth a balm to the chill that still clings to your limbs. The steam rises slowly, curling like a whispered promise. Your fingers, still stiff, from the cold, cradle the bowl as you lift it gently, sipping cautiously to avoid scalding. The taste is plain, earthy, nourishing, but it is enough. Enough to fill the hollow spaces within, enough to fuel the body for what is yet to come. Around you, others eat with similar quiet care. The soft scrape of wooden spoons against bowls punctuates the stillness, a rhythm steady and unhurried. Conversation is sparse, voices low, punctuated by occasional coughs or the crunch of dry bread. There is a shared understanding that this meal is a moment to recharge, not to revel. Bread, hard and coarse, is passed between hands, broken into uneven pieces. It lacks the softness of a home oven, but its crust holds warmth and memory, crumbs of hearth and family embedded in its texture. A handful of dried figs or salted meat may accompany the porridge, offering bursts of flavor in an otherwise muted palate. Water is sipped slowly from leather skins, its coldness a sharp contrast to the porridge's warmth. The act of drinking becomes a small meditation, a reminder of life's fragile necessities amidst the vastness of the frozen plains. The camp around you breathes softly in this lull. Soldiers rest their shoulders, lean back against tents, eyes heavy with brief reprieve. Some exchange quiet words, plans, worries, memories, while others sit alone, lost in thought or the haze of fatigue. Despite the simplicity, there is a profound comfort in these shared moments, the unspoken bond of survival, the fleeting warmth of human presence, the slow pulse of life continuing beneath an indifferent sky. As you finish your meal, the cold air draws you back to the world beyond your bowl. The fire's glow flickers weakly, and the distant call of a hawk breaks the silence. The day moves onward, but for now, this moment holds you, steady, warm, connected. The sun, now past its highest point, casts a softer light across the camp, filtering through the frosted branches and tents with a muted glow. The cold remains, sharp and persistent, but the rhythm of the day shifts, labor giving way to a gentler pace, a time for repair, reflection, and small reprieves from the unrelenting demands of survival. You move slowly among the camp, watching, as men engage in the afternoon's quieter tasks. Some tend to the horses, brushing their stiff coats with careful hands, whispering soft words to calm the restless animals. The faint scent of sweat and hay mingles with the crisp air, grounding the moment in simple care. Others sit near the fire, their backs to the flickering flames as they mend torn cloaks and patch worn boots. Needles and thread move with patient precision, fingers working despite numbness, stitching each tear as if sewing fragments of life itself. The fabric rustles softly, a subtle sound amid the stillness, marking a small defiance against decay and cold. Between these moments of work, the camp offers spaces for brief leisure. Quiet games played on smooth stones, the flick of carved tokens marking a slow contest of strategy. The player's eyes narrow in concentration, breaths held and released in measured time. Laughter, when it comes, is low and rare, treasured like a spark in the long night. Nearby, a soft murmur rises, a melody from a flute carved of bone, its notes thin and haunting as they weave through the cold air. The music threads through the camp like a gentle breeze, stirring memories of distant places and warmer days. Soldiers listen, their faces softened in the firelight, momentarily carried beyond frost and duty. Children, where they exist, move like fleeting shadows, barefoot and bright-eyed, chasing one another in bursts of energy that defy the chill. Their laughter is a fragile bloom, cutting through the camp's solemnity with a brief promise of renewal. Conversations unfold in hushed tones. Words exchanged are few but meaningful. Plans whispered, worries shared, hopes voiced in quiet confidence. The bonds of camaraderie hold steady, knitting together the fragile community beneath the cold sky. As afternoon fades toward evening, the light softens further, casting long shadows that stretch like slow fingers across the frozen ground. The camp begins to prepare for nightfall, the packing of gear, the checking of fires, the settling of watches. You take a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the slow pulse of life in these small, gentle acts. The world here moves with deliberate care, a fragile dance of endurance and hope, framed by the endless sky. And as the cold begins to deepen once more, you carry this soft rhythm with you, a quiet heartbeat beneath the vastness of time and frost. The sun slips slowly toward the horizon, its pale light fading into a gentle wash of grays and blues that deepen with each passing moment. The cold, once softened by the day's brief warmth, returns with a sharper edge, wrapping the camp in a delicate shroud of frost and shadow. The sky above begins to darken, stars emerging like distant fires kindled against the vast blackness, steady and eternal. You move through the camp as the light wanes, footsteps quiet against the frozen ground. Around you, soldiers finish their tasks with care and precision. The folding of cloaks, the securing of packs, the gathering of embers from the dying fires. Each action is deliberate, part of the unspoken ritual that prepares both body and spirit for the coming night. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and earth, mingling with the faint, sharp tang of cold. You breathe deeply, feeling the crispness fill your lungs, the steady rhythm of your heart a gentle drumbeat in the stillness. Voices grow softer now, conversations dwindling into murmurs. Then silence. The camp settles into a quiet hush, a collective inhalation held before the final release into rest. Some soldiers huddle close beneath shared cloaks, their bodies offering warmth against the creeping chill. Others sit alone, eyes fixed on the darkening sky, perhaps tracing familiar constellations or lost in the vastness beyond. The flicker of lanterns and small fires casts long shadows, their golden glow a fragile barrier against the cold. The crackle of burning wood punctuates the silence, a comforting sound, a reminder of life amid the vast, indifferent wilderness. You pause to watch the sky's slow transformation, the deepening blues giving way to the profound blackness of night, punctuated by the steady shimmer of stars. The Milky Way stretches overhead like a pale river of light, its ancient glow connecting the heavens to the frozen earth below. As night falls fully, your body grows heavy, weighed down by fatigue and the day's slow rhythms. You feel the warmth of your cloak, the rough texture of the straw beneath you, the steady beat of your own breath. The world narrows to these sensations, the quiet pulse of life, the soft embrace of rest. You lie back, eyes closing gently, the cold, a distant whisper, against your skin. The fire dims to glowing embers, the wind settles into silence, and the vast Persian sky watches over you, unchanging, eternal, a silent guardian of dreams. And as sleep finds you at last, you drift into the timeless flow of night, carried gently, beneath stars that have witnessed countless such days, countless such nights, across the frozen battlefields of history. In the gentle hush of your own world, surrounded by warmth and light, it is easy to forget the slow, measured rhythms of a time long past. The Persian soldiers who slept on frozen battlefields knew a life shaped not by convenience but by survival, where every breath was a deliberate act against the biting cold and the uncertainty of tomorrow. Their days moved slowly, bound by the Earth's cycles and the fragile promise of warmth. Today, you are wrapped in comforts, soft beds, heated rooms, and steady light that pushes back the darkness at any hour. Water flows freely from taps. Food is plentiful and varied, and the world moves with a speed unimaginable to those who once stood watch beneath an endless sky. The noise of modern life is constant, a ceaseless hum that fills spaces once reserved for silence and reflection. Yet, in this abundance, something subtle is lost. The intimacy with the natural world, the deep connection to the cycles of sun and star, the profound awareness of fragility that marked every moment of existence long ago. The Persian soldier's world was harsh and demanding, but it was also immediate and raw, every sensation sharpened by necessity. You live in a world of light and technology, where distance is collapsed by touchscreens and travel spans continents in hours. Yet the stillness of those ancient nights, the slow unfolding of dawn over frozen earth, carries a quiet wisdom, a reminder that beneath all progress lies the same human need for warmth, for connection, for rest. In this soft comparison, there is no judgment, only gentle understanding. Then was slow and uncertain. Now is fast and certain. Then was ruled by cold and survival. Now by comfort and choice. Both worlds hold their truths, their challenges, their beauty. And as you rest here, listening to the fading echoes of distant footsteps on frozen soil, you carry forward a whisper of that old world, a quiet thread connecting past and present beneath the endless sky. As you settle deeper into your present moment, a soft contemplation arises, an awareness of the fragile balance between progress and loss, between the gifts humanity has gathered and the quiet echoes of what may have slipped away. Through centuries, medicine has blossomed from humble poultices and whispered prayers into science's precise embrace. Illnesses that once claimed lives with relentless certainty are now met with healing hands, medicines, and knowledge that stretch life and ease suffering. Technology has woven the world tighter, folding distance into mere moments, granting voice. Across oceans and light into the darkest nights. Freedom, once constrained by place, birth, and survival, has expanded in breadth and possibility, allowing many to live with choices unimagined by those beneath ancient skies. Yet, in these gains, there lies a subtle cost. The slow cadence of life that shaped bodies and spirits beneath the cold Persian stars has given way to a rapid pulse that can overwhelm senses and scatter attention. The intimate connection to Earth's rhythms, the sacred awareness of nights, silence, and the profound patience born of waiting have faded into background noise beneath modern clamor. The simple acts of tending fire, sharing bread, and watching stars have become moments to rush past rather than savor. The vast, natural world, once a fierce teacher and constant companion, often feels distant, subdued by stone and steel, replaced by screens and cities. The quiet places where the soul once found space to breathe grow smaller, quieter, more elusive. The steady heartbeat of community, woven through shared labor and ritual, has thinned into fragmented threads stretched across digital realms. Still, these losses are not absolutes but invitations, gentle reminders to seek balance, to remember that beneath every advance lies the human need for stillness, for connection, for belonging. The warmth carried by a shared cloak, the slow breaking of dawn over frozen earth, the whispered prayers beneath a starlit sky. These are treasures that endure beyond time's swift march. In this reflection, you hold both worlds, the ancient and the modern, in quiet harmony. You carry forward the wisdom of endurance and the gifts of progress, woven into the fabric of your own story beneath the endless sky. Now, as the soft night embraces you and the world around settles into stillness, let your thoughts drift like the gentle smoke rising from an evening fire. Slow, winding, and free. You carry within you the echoes of those ancient soldiers wrapped in wool beneath frozen stars, breathing the cold air with quiet endurance. Their lives were stitched together by small moments, warmth shared beneath a cloak, the slow unfolding of dawn, the soft murmur of prayers whispered into the night. You too are part of this vast tapestry, threads woven across time and space, connected by breath and story. Though your world hums with light and sound, within you lies the same need for rest, for peace, for the slow unfolding of dreams beneath a protective sky. Let yourself be cradled by that knowledge, gentle and steady, like the earth beneath the stars. There's no hurry here, no place to rush or prove yourself, just the quiet invitation to breathe deeply, to let go of the day's burdens, to sink into the soft arms of rest. The stories you have heard tonight are not mere history, but gentle companions, whispered guides who walk beside you as you journey toward sleep. Feel the rhythm of your breath, the steady beating of your heart, the calm pulse of your body settling into stillness. Let the weight of the past and the present blend into a single moment, a space of warmth and calm where you are safe to dream, to wander, to simply be. And when you awaken, may you carry with you the quiet strength of those who came before, resilient, patient, connected. May their endurance inspire your own, their whispered stories fill your heart, and their soft light guide you through both night and day. Now, rest. Let the world fade gently away. Let your mind drift like a slow river beneath the vast, unchanging sky. You are home. The fire dims, its embers glowing faintly like tiny, tired stars struggling against the growing night. The wind, once a restless visitor, settles into a quiet sigh, brushing softly over the frozen earth and the scattered tents where soldiers lie wrapped in wool and silence. You breathe deeply, feeling the steady rhythm of your own heartbeat slow, to match the hush around you. Your body grows heavy, sinking gently into the warmth of your resting place. The cold no longer bites sharply, it softens into a distant memory, a shadow fading at the edges of your awareness. You feel the rough texture of straw beneath you, the weight of blankets folded tenderly across your limbs, the gentle press of wool against your skin. Above, the sky stretches wide and infinite, a velvet canvas embroidered with the soft glow of distant stars. Their light is steady, timeless, a quiet comfort that watches over you as the world drifts slowly toward sleep. The constellations, ancient and familiar, trace their slow arcs across the heavens, silent witnesses to countless nights like this, where bodies rest and dreams take flight beneath their watchful gaze. The sounds of the camp grow faint, only the occasional breath, the soft rustle of fabric, the gentle shift of a sleeping figure. There is no urgency here, no noise to break the tender stillness. Time seems to slow, to fold gently upon itself, inviting you to slip deeper into rest. Your thoughts drift like leaves on a calm river, floating free from the pull of worries or plans. You feel a gentle warmth in your chest, a quiet gratitude for the journey you have shared, the stories whispered, the cold endured, the soft moments of light in the vast darkness. And now, as your eyes close fully and your breath becomes slow, and even you are carried into the realm of sleep, a place without struggle or haste, where dreams weave their gentle patterns beneath the watchful stars. The world grows quiet, the fire fades, the wind rests. You breathe, and sleep finds you.